United Nations, he talked about how a sudden threat, extraterrestrial threat, unhuman threat, would bring together all humanity into a single world order, a unified world effort to resist or battle this common extraordinary foe. And as astonishing as it seems, I mean, something of this nature, Steve, could happen at any moment. Tomorrow the CERN is going to be turned on. There's other inventions that are occurring all around us. There is the opportunity for a great deception to be suddenly compelled on Earth by the appearance of what seems to be extraordinary forces, whether it's a hive of hundreds of millions of giants suddenly coming through something upon the Earth, or an armada of UFOs, or you mentioned earlier, the work that's done by David Flynn, maybe a planetoid-sized mothership zooming down upon Earth. Look, consider this week the news, the discovery where there's an object. Did you see this in the icy Kuiper belt?
Yes. And
it's orbiting the sun, but it's orbiting backwards.
Retrograde.
Yeah, and the astronomers in the article actually said that, it could have been born elsewhere. That kind of stuck out to me. Born elsewhere. Yep. Elsewhere. What's that mean? Outside of our solar system, outside of our galaxy. Whatever it is, it's the largest unidentified flying object ever seen. It's 31 miles wide. The mainstream news, scientists are talking about it being potentially a comet, but there's no way that they know that because it's only a blur that's showing up on their screen. As far as we know, it could be a gigantic spaceship. We don't know what it is. But what we do know is it's flying in the opposite direction of all planets, and it appears to be powered by itself. And why that's interesting in a theological discussion about how a satanic or alien conspiracy could suddenly come upon and overwhelm mankind is this accepted theology concerning Lucifer, including the possibility that the location from which he fell from was a star system, a planetoid. In fact, I would also want to let people know that, unless you've run out, I believe you have copies of David Flynn's book, Cydonia, The Secret Chronicles of Mars.
Yes, I do.
And a lot of people are wondering where can they get their hands on a copy of that book. And the only person I know that has any copies of that book, new copies of the book, not used ones, is you, and you only have a limited supply, and those are going to run out pretty soon. And if anybody wants a copy of that, they ought to get it from you while they still can, because once it's gone, and then it's just going to be paid $200 or $300 for it on eBay. But David Flynn did extraordinary research in that, where he details the history and the mythology behind Mars, and the fact that in mythology and history it appears to be a prison planet. I mean, a place, according to the records, in which rebel angels not only existed, but where they may be bound now.
And Tom, just to put that into perspective, the people that control the actual visual, all these probes that disappear at Mars, the bottom line is you're only told they disappear. A lot of those things, basically, if you will, it's the angry red planet. You can call it the prison planet, more so than most people understand. But the thing is that the information I have is that it's under constant surveillance, and so are Phobos and Deimos, the two, if you will, Martian moons. There are some people that believe that both those are artificial. I don't know that, but I can tell you this. Again, with people who you can't go higher in their pay grade, tell me that Tom Horn is talking about what's on Mars and it's under constant surveillance in real time, and that they literally have the Mars monitoring group. The bottom line is that I tend to believe them, because you can't hear that from men who are so incredibly brave, incredibly amazing, and hear it from so many different sources and have it verified, that you basically have to know that God is trying to get our attention. And I think that's the thing that we need to understand. So David Flynn's work in Mars, let's face it, no one ever did it before.
No, well, but he's only looking at the ancient records, and let's look at something, Steve. And I know we only got about 5 minutes now. Look at the artificial-looking moon Iapetus.
Yep.
And part of Flynn's research in the book Sidonia, The Secret Chronicles of Mars, which I think you're the only one on Earth that has new copies of, and they're about to run out. He talks about Hesiod's theogony, which describes this place of the imprisonment of the Titan gods.
Right.
And it's so extraordinary because Hesiod talked about this great gulf, where stands the awful home of murky night wrapped in dark clouds, where night and day draw near and greet one another. But he talks about how they greet one another as they pass the great threshold of bronze. And there the children of dark night have their dwelling, sleep and death, awful gods. How could Hesiod's theogony, he's writing about all these various things, how could he have known that on Iapetus, just as he described, there is a great gulf that is formed by a giant walled threshold at its creator? This is a feature that was, in modern times, only discovered New Year's Eve in 2005 by a flyby of NASA's Cassini spacecraft, where they photographed an 808 miles long, 12 miles high rim stretching in a perfect straight line over one-third of Iapetus equator. There's no other moon in the solar system that's been found with a stunning feature like that. Literally a 60,000-foot high wall in a perfect straight line for 808 miles along this perimeter. So I would just encourage people, because I know we're going to run out of time, go and read Hesiod's theology here, where he talks about this great threshold of bronze, this great gulf where night and day draw near and greet one another as they pass the great threshold of bronze, and where there the great awful gods greet each other. It was Tobias Owen, and he was the man at NASA, who discovered the face on Mars. He actually wrote about, in a book called The Search for Life in the Universe, he wrote about how the moon Iapetus is the only object in the universe where we might seriously regard it as being an alien outpost, a literal natural object deliberately modified by an advanced civilization to attract our attention. Steve, whenever something that large floating about up in the heavens is designed intentionally to attract our attention, it gives me pause. I was talking actually to David Flynn recently, and he made an interesting point about this, including the biblical renderings of the bottomless pit, and how that the bottomless pit might actually be a star. He talked about how in Revelation 9:1-8, where it says, "And he opened the bottomless pit, and there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle, and their faces were like the faces of men. They had the hair of women, the teeth were as of lions," and so on. And David points out how that, similar to our research, you have here described an army of beings with mixed genetics, transgenics.
Right.
The similarity.
Hey, Tom.
These locusts and their faces of men.
We're out of time, but because, again, I've still got some time that I must use up on my shortwave before my contract is up. At your convenience, I'll talk to you off air, but we need to go from this on, because I got to tell you, I feel impressed that this is the most critical thing. When I ask the Lord, and I want you to know this, what I should do for my closing shows, what's the most important thing I can say, having said everything, quote, in the natural, he said, you have to concentrate on the supernatural war in the aspect. So I want to thank you, and if we can, I'd like to do another 2-hour session with you.
Well, Steve, I'm out of time, too, and I've got to run. I only want to say to your listeners...
not tonight. I mean some other time.
All right, I'll say it some other time about how we could be forced into a sudden, inexplicable realization of forces coming upon Earth. What's going to happen to the human race when an extrasolar planetoid suddenly turns and heads towards Earth and forces upon us official disclosure?
Amen. Thank you, Tom Horn. God bless you, my friend.
God bless you, Steve.
Good night, ladies and gentlemen.